Welcome. Today I will be paraphrasing, summarizing, and sharing for the August 29th Al-Anon readings, Encouraged to Change, and a little time for myself. We'll begin with the Serenity Prayer and 3 mindful breaths. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm going to take a minute and look this over. The question is, how do I determine what is acceptable behavior and what is not? Wow. All right. This person begins by saying that when they were younger, they thought compassion was about fixing the parts of their abusers that abused them. And they gave their abusers unconditional love and forgiveness. But that meant more unacceptable behavior. But then this person came to Al-Anon and learned that actually really having compassion means getting out of harm's way. It means letting the other person live their life and then this person focusing their energy on living their life, their own life. This person says sponsors help them, other Al-Anon members setting boundaries. That's really powerful. Today's reminder, setting boundaries lets us treat ourselves and others with gentleness, kindness, and respect. And the quote is from a guide for the family of the alcoholic. Compassion does not mean suffering. How do I determine what is acceptable behavior and what is not? So what I'm thinking about very clearly and unmistakably while reading this is and it's not easy to talk about because I feel so strongly about it and because I love this person so much. And I have such amazing respect. But I also know that there are different sides. All right, so the person that I thought about while I was reading this was my my dear beloved father, who is a wonderful human being in many aspects. I absolutely adore him. He has supported me. He has always done the best he can, always. Without a doubt, I have no doubt. I forgive him on every level. The same way I hope my son forgives me, because I know I was always trying my best, but I know that I I made I probably did things that weren't ideal. They were different than the way, well, maybe not. I don't know. What am I trying to say? So my dad has in the past, and even somewhat recently, he says things that are less than supportive. And um, and he's definitely softening, but it still happens every now and then. And when I say that I have no doubt that my father loves me, I mean, I have no doubt that my father has dedicated a large part of his life to being a father to me and my brother. And he's amazing. He's an amazing human being. He really is. But what I'm talking about, and maybe it applies to every relationship, maybe it does, is that maybe this is true that we all have parts of us that can be less than ideal and can be kind of you know, unappealing. And I think that's what's true. I think I'm thinking of my dad because specifically, not because he's awful, but because I'm thinking about my dad a lot lately because of his age and because of his circumstances with my stepmom. And right now, they both have COVID. I don't know if I've mentioned that. Um, they're okay, but obviously not ideal for two people in their mid to late 80s. So I think that's why I am thinking specifically of my dad, is just because he's in my mind a lot. Um, but the most important reason why he's in my mind a lot is because he's so important to me and he's taught me so much and he's been um, such a big part of my life for my whole life. So, but truthfully, as I'm thinking about it, and I can feel the divine leading me in realizing that everyone has this part of them, including myself. I can be I can be stubborn. I can be very stubborn, and I can see it in my partner's eyes when I start to do it. I can see it in his eyes, and I right away I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. I need to take a breath. I need to take a break, and that's a gift. So, how do I determine what is acceptable behavior and what is not? Well, even though I've said all that, and it's all 100% true as I see it today, right now, when someone says something, like say my dad says something that doesn't feel good, I can not reply. I can change the subject. I can say, ouch. A good friend of mine recommended I say that, ouch. Like, that hurts. Why would you say something like that? But also try not to be accusatory, just like, that hurt. So there are a number of ways that I can react. So So it can be unacceptable in that moment, but then not be a big deal. And there are also different situations where things can be unacceptable long term. For example, my marriage. There was so much unacceptable behavior, the trust was gone, and it just became an unacceptable situation, and the marriage ended. So, as with everything, there's a whole spectrum of intensity in unacceptable behavior. But if it doesn't feel good, and I realize that it's not something that I provoked, it just doesn't feel good, then it could very well be unacceptable behavior, that someone's doing something that is not right and is something that I do not need to subject myself to. So I think that's about as clear as I can be at this moment. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to take a moment and look this over. Very hopeful passage. It's about regret for things that we did and how step 8 can help us to release guilt. So step 8, it doesn't quote it in here, so I'm just going to read step 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So this person says when they made their list, it made everything seem more manageable, and they felt hopeful that they could free themselves from the burden that they felt. And then step 8 gives us a way to begin to clear all of those negative feelings. Today's reminder: guilt keeps us from living freely in the present, but we can work step 8 to feel better. And the quote is from As We Understood. Al-Anon shows us a better way of living. We can live our lives joyfully, one day at a time. We can meet our challenges head on. That's very hopeful. I love it. I believe it. I think it's true from my own experience in Al-Anon. And I love how, because I've already worked step 8, although I worked it in Al-Anon, I haven't worked it in OA. So I don't know if I need to talk to my OA sponsor about that and see if she thinks it's a good idea to work the steps from an OA perspective. I don't know. But in my opinion, step 8 goes along with step 10, which is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So once we do step 8 and step 9, where we actually make amends, then it's I guess I just answered my own question. It's basically saying you don't have to go back and do step 8 again. You can just do step 10, which is as you're living, just make amends as you see fit. I really love that. And I think it's also helped me, along with my continued Al-Anon work and other spiritual practices, it's helped me to feel like I owe fewer amends, because I started off thinking that I just needed to apologize, like make amends to anyone I ever had contact with because I was so very flawed, which is completely out of whack. And I now realize that there are certain things that I definitely need to make amends for, or would feel better if I made amends for them. But it's not as much as I originally thought. And one of my favorite thoughts that I learned in Al-Anon is that I don't need to apologize for being human. We'll close out with the Serenity Prayer and 3 mindful breaths. Here we go. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Sending you love. Take care.